More lockdowns on the way across the country. We'll bring you up to speed on where and how severe, plus updates on the Trump election fight, threats against Michigan election officials, and Governor Cuomo blames COVID victims. If I told you that 12 months ago the Democrats and the media would be cheering on politicians for threatening to arrest people for the crime of gathering with their families on Thanksgiving, you would have thought that if I'd said that, I was insane, right? If anyone had told you that, you would have thought that they were completely crazy. But here we are. This is happening right now. And now the question becomes, are we going to continue to comply, or are we going to fight? Now, what does fight mean in this context? An excellent question. People bring this up. Exercising autonomy and freedom in every way you can based upon your own individual circumstance, which takes into account your health risk toleration, which takes into account where you are in the country. Are there any others who think like you? Are you going to be the one person in some sea of blue? Because as we know, this has become political. This is insane. It never should have been, but now it is. You see, opposing mask mandates and shutdowns was never about Trump. Despite all the garbage peddled in the American media, you can see, I don't care who the president ends up being when it comes to lockdowns. I don't want them. I don't support them. I don't think the data supports them. I think they're unconstitutional. I think it's tyranny. This is going now beyond even a deep constitutional argument to just a natural law and natural rights argument. I have a right as a human being to spend time with my family over a holiday, irrespective of whether the government thinks it's good for my health. I don't give a crap what the government thinks about it. This is about individual decision making. It's about having the agency, the free will to live your life as you see fit. Remember, you're not doing anything in violation of actual law. You're not harming anyone, but they pretend that you are. They pretend that just because you're out and about, it means that there's a possibility of risk. But there's always a possibility of risk for countless activities that the government does not prevent. The government does not threaten to lock you up for engaging in those activities. You know, there are anti-COVID protests in Germany. There have been some in Spain. There have been some in many European countries. I suppose we're going to be told that these are all just far-right nationalists or some other nonsense in our own media. Maybe they're just people that are sick of walking around all the time now outside with masks on. Wearing masks outside is not scientifically supported. There is no study. There is no basis for this. But what you see is a constant shifting of what the science says based upon the needs of the left-wing collectivist consensus. And that's what's happening right now. We have the CDC offering up guidance to people to avoid travel over Thanksgiving. I just want to ask you this. Do you think they're going to say, you know what? Good job over Thanksgiving, guys. Now the cases are really low. No. There will be more cases. We are entering a period here of upper respiratory virus spread. And people that were not infected the first go round are going to be at continued risk to get infected this time. This is just the reality of what we're facing and what we're dealing with. But no matter what you do, remember, and I've been telling you this all along, they'll say it's not enough. They'll say it's insufficient. The lockdowns, the shutdowns of businesses that come along with it, the restrictions on your ability to move freely, to worship, to engage in religious practice, to go to funerals, to go to weddings, to have birthday parties. Unless you're Gavin Newsome, then you can go with a whole bunch of people, including senior medical bureaucrats from the state of California to have one of the fanciest dinners in the United States indoors. The elites have no problem with hypocrisy. In fact, hypocrisy feels good behind closed doors in places the elites don't really want to talk about. Feels good. They like that they can get away with this stuff. They like that the rules don't really apply to them while they're going around crushing the likes of you and me. And I have to say, I'm tired of it. I'm sick of so many Americans walking around doing what they're told. We should all moo like a bunch of cows being herded into our pens. This is outrageous. I thought this was a country that believed in freedom and the risks that come with it. But no, we have bureaucrats. We have a system of control in place now that's taking all those decisions away from you. If you saw where we were, where we are now, if you could have seen that a year ago, I'm telling you, you would have said never in America would that happen. The American people would not go along with it. And that's why I say we fight. It's time to stop the lockdown madness. Those who want to live their lives should non-comply however they can. And then what's the level beyond that? Those tasked with enforcement of these rules should refuse to do so. Those with power who push this tyranny should be held to account, and those in positions of authority who are trying to fight for greater liberty, for greater autonomy for us as individuals, for our lives to be up to us, those people should be supported with everything we can, with everything we've got. There's no one answer to how you fight back against this. It may be that you just refuse to mask up outside because it's idiotic, because there's no basis for it, because they even told us that for months when the pandemic was raging through this country late last winter and into the spring. You don't need to wear a mask outside. That's not supported. The biggest studies that have been done on this say that the risk of transmission outside is effectively nothing. So maybe you don't wear a mask outside. Some of you perhaps will say, I don't want to wear a mask inside, but then you're going to run afoul of state law. You may find yourself harassed. Fights break out over this. People become violent. That's how unhinged they are. There are people across the country right now who think they have a right to lay hands on you because there's a 1 in 10,000 chance that you may have a respiratory virus, that there's a tiny chance that if they're near you for more than 15 minutes indoors, they may contract from you. The reproduction rate, the R number that goes along with viruses, even when it's at a pandemic, if it's an R of 1, most people who get this are likely to give it to only one other person. So when you really do the math, anyone that's threatening violence against you, that lays hands on you because you're not wearing a mask, is acting like a lunatic. But it happens. It happens all across the country. People have gotten into fights. There have even been people killed because they weren't wearing a mask. This is a mass brainwashing that has occurred. They ignore the data that they don't like. They dress up and inflate the data they do like, and they love this control, and we know they want to use it for much more than just COVID control. They want to use this for human control. They want to tell you what you can do. What you think the same people that are pushing the Green New Deal, the same people that want socialism and a government that's constantly engaged in social justice, re-engineering of society, you think that they don't view this as an opportunity to remake this country and perhaps even the world? Of course they do. In fact, I bet there's a huge relationship between people who believe climate change is an existential threat to humanity who are also strong supporters of lockdowns and mask mandates. I'd say if you support one, there's over a 90% chance you support the other. Probably a 99% chance. Right? If you believe climate change is an existential threat to humanity, you're a mask up all the time, indoors, maybe in the shower, maybe in bed when you sleep at night. What if a fireman has to break into your home during a fire and carry you out? Got to have that mask ready to go. Don't want to give him COVID. These people are insane. They think we're the crazy ones. I told you the same thing all along. I act the way with COVID that I would during a bad flu season in terms of the precautions. Yeah, if you're sick, stay away from people. That's always been our custom. And when Fauci says abandoning all public health measures, no, I'm not about to go to a crowded house party with 60 people indoors, shoulder to shoulder. I'm not saying be stupid, but could I sit in a restaurant 6 feet away from people and feel like I'm probably going to be okay? Yes, I could. Is being shoulder to shoulder at a bar maybe not a great idea right now? Okay, but those are based on intelligent risk mitigation strategies that we all know exist and are real. And it's also a question of individual choice. I'm saying I wouldn't do that. But if somebody feels like, one, maybe they've already had COVID, two, they're not particularly concerned about it, they should be allowed to live their lives. It should be up to business owners if they want to open their doors right now, or if they want to go to the government for assistance in this period. That should also be an option for them. But it shouldn't be that everyone has to be shut down and everyone has to do whatever these tyrants in charge say. I mean, based on what? We have had the removal of choice from our lives in a way that's unprecedented. The trampling on liberties that has gone on here. We have so many people who talk about liberty, and this is on our own side too. They're waving flags and don't tread on me and the founding fathers. We believe in all this stuff. Do you think that the generation that was at Bunker Hill and Concord Bridge, you think that they would see what's going on right now in this country and say, yeah, good job, guys, really carrying the torch of liberty here? Well, everyone hides. Where's your mask? Where's your mask? No, I think we've all seen where that gets us. Do they have any answers? Do the mask shamers, the smug, I listen to the science mask shamers, do they even try to explain why we're having huge surges in cases across the country when we have more mask compliance than ever before? That's how effective masks are. We're wearing them all over the place, worst cases we've ever had. And in fact, the states that have had the longest mask mandates and the most strict ones are the worst hit by the virus once again. But they don't answer those questions, do they? It doesn't really matter to them. Because as I've been telling you, this is about something else. The answer to how we fight back against this is in every way that you can, that you choose to. This is about whether you get to control your day-to-day life or the state gets to control your day-to-day life. Some of you are going to be particularly brave. You're going to say, I'm going to open my business. I'm going to walk around without a mask on. Understand, there are consequences to that. You may get fined. Your business may be shut down. Somebody might start a fight with you in the gym because you don't want to be on a treadmill with a mask on like an idiot. And I understand it. I appreciate that. I feel the same way. But everyone right now is making their own decisions about how to fight back against a movement that at its core is about removing your ability to make decisions. So there's some poetry there. There's some broader meaning in all of this. Tell people the truth about what you're seeing happening. Don't allow those who claim that they understand more than you for no apparent reason to bully you and silence you and make you do things you don't want to do. Fight back at your school board to get schools open. People who say schools should be closed are idiots. They're wrong. We've run the experiment. They were wrong. It's the lazy, disgusting teachers' unions that are pushing for this stuff in major cities. We all know it. Fight for schools to reopen in your area. Fight for restaurants to stay as open as possible, 50% capacity, 75% capacity. Do what you can. Support those local businesses. We all have to band together here. The government's not going to pull us through this thing, and the government's not going to give us back our freedom. We have to find ways to do it ourselves. We have to take that freedom back. And otherwise, we're going to have holiday after holiday for months on end here where we're told, sorry, you don't get to see your loved ones. You don't have the right. I'm sorry. I still think this is America, and I'm not willing to give it up to the Fauci morons of the world. Not willing to do it. I recently got a crash course in home title theft, and you better pray this crime never happens to you because it can ruin your financials. Here's what happens. The bad guys, cyber thieves, they go after your home's title by finding it online because it exists in the cloud. It's on servers. Then they use a quitclaim deed, kick you off your home's title, put themselves on, and then they start taking out loans against the equity in your home. Usually you're not going to find out about this until you receive a payment notice in the mail, perhaps even a foreclosure notice. You can't trust the usual identity theft services to protect you. You have to go with the experts I trust at Home Title Lock. All you have to do is go to HomeTitleLock.com, use the promo code RADIO for 30 free days of protection. That's HomeTitleLock.com, promo code RADIO for 30 free days of protection. You can also check at HomeTitleLock.com to see if you're already a victim of home title theft and don't even know it yet. HomeTitleLock.com, promo code RADIO.
There are many states that do have mask mandates in place, and some that do not. But I look at their rate of spread, and the fact is that cases are increasing in many of those states as well. If you look at Wisconsin, they've had a mask mandate since August, and they have a higher rate of spread than the state of South Dakota. You look at Montana, they've had a mask mandate in place since July. Both of those states have higher rates of spread than the state of South Dakota. When you look at Wyoming, it has the fastest spread in the nation. And that is the concern that I have, is many times I don't want to approach a policy or a mandate just looking to make people feel good. I want to do good and actually put forward provisions that make a difference for families. And these local communities have some flexibility today that Sioux Falls can make a different decision than Rapid City. Rapid City can make a different decision than Lemon, South Dakota. Watertown can make a different decision than Pierre. And that's what some of these local leaders are doing in reacting to the people in the community based on what they want.
Doesn't that seem entirely reasonable to you? That's Governor Kristi Noem, who I hope has a bigger future in the GOP. I think she's a star. I think she's what people like to think Nikki Haley is, but Nikki Haley is not in terms of the next best chance of a GOP female presidential candidate, somebody who would do really well in the Midwest, really well in the Rust Belt states. That's what I see. But back to what she's saying here, do you think they'll admit to people that that's the reality? They just made mistakes here. There were enormous mistakes made in so many other areas of the COVID response. But on this one, they're claiming it's settled science, right? They were putting people on ventilators, which was a terrible idea and caused a lot of people to die that probably, this is the medical community now. Now, I'm not blaming anyone, but I'm saying there were enormous mistakes made there. We don't really ever talk about it, but masks they won't back off of. Masks, they think are sacred somehow. And remember, it is a symbol. It's about more than just that piece of cloth over your face. It has turned into, will you comply? Right? You know, don't tread on me. It's time for people to start saying, don't mask on me. Enough is enough.
So this is a good Thanksgiving to just stay home and stay within your bubble, or at most, a small number of additional 2 or 3 people who are also taking really good precautions. But this is a good year to stay home, and it's a good year for us to do it across the U.S. So maybe we could have a better Christmas. There's 250,000 dead people. We'd like to limit that further. And the other thing I'd like to pick up the point I heard earlier on the show is, a single negative test is not a pass to say, I am fine, I can now go do whatever I want, because you may well still be infected and incubating. So please be cautious of thinking that, well, I got a single negative test somewhere and I'm good to go. Stay home.
You can't test your way into Thanksgiving dinner. I mean, you just can't test your way to that table. That's just not the way.
You can't test your way into Thanksgiving dinner. And we've seen this around the president, right? You couldn't even protect the president with a testing strategy.
Even tests won't protect you from passing it on to relatives, getting it from relatives, they're telling you. I thought testing was our way out of this. Remember that? They always find the negative interpretation because there's no such thing as perfect health security. They always find it's possible, therefore let's go with the most extreme interpretation. People die every year. Tens of thousands of people die in America every year from influenza. Nobody ever says, don't have Thanksgiving, don't open your business, wear masks. Never happens. Now you could say, well, Buck, that's only tens of thousands. That's every single year. And I know that they've made this argument, oh, you're a flu bro, and there's all this. How is this not a valid argument? They never even address this. We accept as the cost of living in a free society, anywhere from 30 to 80,000 deaths will occur in the United States every year from influenza. Okay? And that doesn't even take into account people that during the same respiratory illness period, are going to get other viruses that might turn into a bacterial pneumonia or other ways that people end up succumbing. We're talking about mostly older people who are at risk. Yes, we are all going to get old and we are all going to die. That is our reality as human beings. What's open to us in the meantime is what can we do between now and then? How much freedom do we have? How much joy? How much of a contribution? How worthwhile can we make our time here? And these idiots in the government, in the public health sector, are taking your time from you. I have never said, if you are worried, if you have health conditions, if you think you're at a high risk, whatever precautions you want to take, by all means. And we should be set up to support anybody who feels like they're in that category. They should have an ability easily. There's a lot of food delivery services and things like that in large cities, but in more rural areas, people should be able to bring them food in a safe and secure manner. People should be able to bring them their medicine. I mean, we should have this all set up. But me? I'm going into an office every day, right now, already. I live in New York City. I was riding the subway every day, 4 times a day, believe it or not, during the height of the pandemic spread. And even after it hit New York City, there were a few weeks there where I was still riding the subway every day. So yes, I would live my life. And when the virus was really bad, did I limit some contact with my parents to try to? Sure. But if everyone in your family feels fine, and now they're saying even if you get a COVID test beforehand, that's not sufficient. What they're saying is that there's a 1 in 10,000 chance. Remember, it's not a 1 in 10,000 chance that you're going to give COVID to somebody and they die. There's like a 1 in 10,000 chance that you'll get COVID unexpectedly, give it to somebody. That's the first leap. And then they have a 99% chance of surviving even if they get it. We're all going to hide from this now. We're all going to act like, remember, Thanksgiving, this is a one-time occasion we're talking about this year. This isn't do it every day. I'm not saying gather together with your whole family every single day, especially it's all about risk. It's all about what's acceptable, but they don't view it that way. No, they want to panic you. And it's not just Democrats. I mean, here's Secretary Azar. The bureaucrats, they don't want any heat coming down on them, so they take these positions. Here's HHS under Trump. Azar, play 12.
The safest way to celebrate Thanksgiving this year is at home with the people you live with and through virtual celebrations. Gathering indoors with people who aren't members of your household is a higher risk activity for spreading the virus. Please know that there is light at the end of the tunnel. Because of the sacrifices Americans have made and the hard work that so many have done, we will have the chance to celebrate holidays much more safely with family and friends not so far in the future.
You know what the safest way to have sex is? Never have sex. It's true. You never know. Stuff can go wrong. I'm not even just talking about, people can pass diseases back and forth, but, you could have a heart attack. It happens. People die. Safest way to have sex, never have sex. People still could have complications in childbirth even. I mean, I'm talking about even in the confines of a marriage. Sex can be dangerous. Safest thing to do would be never have it. Never do it. It's a health risk. And it's the dumbest thing any human being's probably ever said, right? But how different is it really from the attitude you're hearing these days? Oh, only do virtual meetings. Only do virtual Thanksgiving. Don't see your family members. Like I've said, if you cut out having any symptoms, being sick. If you're sick, stay home, stay away from people. That's already taking out the symptomatic population from being able to spread this thing. One of the problems that exists is people get sick and then they're already around their family every day because it's in the home. Intrafamilial transmission is a primary risk of this, right? But they know they can't tell people you have to live alone forever, so that doesn't work. But that's really where the risk is. The one-time gathering where you're with a bunch of people, statistically, much lesser risk than what will happen for, I have one friend in New York City who died from COVID-19, and it was my friend's father, but I've known him for almost 30 years, and he passed away from COVID, and he got it from his wife, who's a healthcare worker, who also got it, but she was fine. That's really a big play, and that was where there was maximum spread, and this is when things were going so badly in New York City. But what they're telling you here is effectively no risk is acceptable. Well, if you cut out people with symptoms from a gathering, you're already taking a very important step. Maybe limit how many long, hugs and embraces you give more senior citizen members of your family. I mean, I'm telling you this right now. I could get COVID and I could die from COVID. I am not worried personally about COVID. Based on everything I read, based on everything I know, I'm not worried. And I could be wrong, but I still want to live my life. And I know there are millions and millions of other people out there like me who feel like it's an acceptable risk. There are some activities I wouldn't do. I would choose not to do right now. I can wait, I can wait to go to an indoor rock concert until the vaccine comes out, right? I mean, I'm willing to make some of those, but I mean, I can't go to a restaurant. I can't see my family. I can't go to I can't go into a store. I can't go. There's so many things. And for what? It doesn't even work. They're putting all these impositions on you. Do they really think that if we have fewer Thanksgiving gatherings, there's not going to be a whole lot of COVID spread all over the country anyway? You still got to go to the grocery store. You still got to go to the drugstore. People still have to live their lives, and living your life is a risk. Or you can listen to the panic mongers out there. You can listen to, here's Biden's COVID advisor. This is the guy that wants a 4 to 6 week lockdown. Straight nationwide. This is what you're going to get with the Biden administration. And I told you we were going to go into another lockdown as a country, and I've told you that the Biden administration, if it happens, was going to make everything worse. And here's the proof. Here's all you need to know. Play 4.
I think right now we all have to understand that we need current information on the number of cases. I think that the White House Task Force report issued yesterday, or at least be made public yesterday, is right on the mark. We are really in a crisis stage. We have to be discussing what can we do? What do we do? It's not just enough to help Americans understand you don't want to swap air. How do you incentivize them? How do you help them realize that this is what they want to do? And I've been saying for some time, we need FDR moments right now. We need somebody to say, this is what's happening. This is how bad it is. We're going to see hospitals collapsing in the next 2 to 3 weeks. And this is what we've got to do to address that. And just remember one thing, for the next 3 weeks, the cases are already in the pipeline. The people who are infected this morning will be the cases of next week in the hospital a few days after that, and will be in the intensive care rooms and dying after that. So even if we did everything we could right now, we would still not turn this thing around for literally 3 to 4 more weeks.
Just 2 more weeks, 3 more weeks. These guys always say that. They're always wrong. But notice that he's already factored in here. If you do everything I say, it's still going to be really bad. But if you don't do what I say, it's going to be really bad. That's the choice we're always given. Do these horribly inconvenient, destructive, economically and emotionally and psychologically painful things, or else, and we still get the or else, but they tell us the or else is not as horrible as it would have been. They're wrong. They're just wrong. What they tell us doesn't do anything. It doesn't make, when I say this, if you could create a society where everyone wore their mask perfectly, where everyone socially distanced exactly as they said they would, where everybody would be careful about washing their hands, if you could re-engineer human beings so that we were robots and that we would all respond to the mandate like robots, we wash hands, we stay away, we wear the mask. If we did that, maybe it would be able to, while we were still doing that, dramatically curb infections. But the only thing that really brings infections down is telling you you have to stay away from other human beings, keep you in your home. This mask thing is fantasyland stuff, that it's going to break the spread of the infection once it's already out there. We've already seen it's absurd. And you could say, oh, Buck, but the science. Yeah, but people don't wear their masks perfectly. Every time I get on the elevator in my building and everyone here is panicked, people are, fidgeting with their mask, their noses, they're breathing through their nose, which people believe might actually be where the worst viral particles might reside. They're breathing through their nose, not through the mask. They pull their mask down to cough. I can't tell you how many people I see pull their mask down to cough. Remember, all this has to do to be an ongoing pandemic. Every person who's sick gets one person sick. If it's an R1, a reproduction rate of 1, it turns into exponential pandemic very quickly. So these mandates are all based on the idea that people are going to be so good with the mandate that they won't even expose one person if they get sick. Does anyone really think they're that good at this? They're not going to breathe air into a room. It's aerosolized. You don't even have, you can get infected, and they don't want to talk about this, but the studies have shown this so far. You can get infected walking into a room after somebody's already been in there. How are you going to control for this? Viruses have been around as long as human beings have been around, friends. They've adapted to continue to spread. Why they exist, that's a whole other question. Who knows? But we have not defeated aerosolized virus with these measures, and we're not going to. So take basic precautions to limit your risk and then go forward and live your life as you see fit. Or just keep obeying the tyrants and see how you feel, see where you are in 9 months when maybe they'll start to say enough people have gotten vaccinated that you don't have to live in fear anymore. We'll see what the country looks like then. You may not have ever heard this one so directly before, but Cuomo wants you to know, Governor Cuomo wants you to know that if you get COVID, it's probably your fault. This is what he says. Play 20.
And just to make it very simple, if you socially distanced and you wore a mask and you were smart, none of this would be a problem. It's all self-imposed. It's all self-imposed. If you didn't eat the cheesecake, you wouldn't have a weight problem. It's all self-imposed.
That's moronic. I mean, truly, he's truly a dumbass. I don't know what else to say about it. It's your fault if you catch a submicroscopic aerosolized virus that's in wide circulation all across the country. People with masks on get sick. We know that for a fact. It does happen. There's no question about that. Mask wearers get sick. In fact, there's some data to suggest that it's mostly mask wearers in a lot of places who get sick. Now, that may be because of such high mask adoption rates. But the point is that it's people wearing masks that are getting sick in a lot of places. Maybe, yeah, sure, they would have gotten sick anyway, but the masks aren't some game changer for them. That's for sure. But he's straight up saying it's your fault. He is taking the position here that the reason COVID is hitting certain people is because you don't listen enough to their demands. You don't listen enough to what they tell you you have to do. I've been telling you this all along. This continues to be their fallback. And then also just, they can't help but try to take shots at Trump over this vaccine. I mean, right now, instead of saying, wow, what a huge accomplishment the vaccine is, you got Biden and the rest of them pretending that because there's not enough of a transition already in place here, whatever that means, that the virus, or rather that the vaccine is going to be delayed. So now they're leveraging this once again. It wasn't just enough to weaponize COVID as Trump is responsible for all the deaths. It's Trump's fault. It's so terrible. It's all on him, right? They did that. We know that. But beyond that, they've now said that if the virus continues into the next year, it's because of the recklessness of Trump in the transition, right? Because of the vaccine. Play 19.
we get to the point where we have a sense of when these vaccines comes out, how they'll be distributed, who will be first in line, what the plan is. There are over 300 million Americans and beyond our border that are going to have to be taken care of. And there's a whole lot of things that we just don't have available to us, which unless it's made available soon, we're going to be behind by weeks or months being able to put together the whole initiative relating to the biggest promise we have, with two coming along and finding 95% effectiveness, efficiency in the vaccines, which is an enormous promise. So I just want to tell you that's the only slowdown right now that we have.
Yeah, it's all about the slow vaccine rollout. That's Trump's fault. Not a lot of love given to the administration for being the only reason we have the vaccine. I shouldn't say the only reason. It was in partnership with major drug companies. And those drug companies, a lot of beating up on Big Pharma. Not a lot of people taking a moment to say, hey, Big Pharma, thank you for helping to maybe save the planet here pretty soon. So that's worth noting, too.